Hey,
Hello, welcome to Beyond Law podcast.
hey, it's definitely a pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
And I mean, definitely appreciate you for creating a platform for people that want to pursue either public service within politics or government, but also a law degree. Because I know those are things that I mean, I do want more work within public service, politics, state government, but I know we interact a lot with lawyers, with just a lot of people that do that kind of legal work.
before we start, can you share about you, like your background, a little about your story?
Yeah, of course. So I'm currently serving as a state representative for a district in South Oklahoma City. A little bit about my backstory and how I ended up being in the state legislature in Oklahoma. So I guess I'll go back to like a little bit about my family. But both of my parents are from a little town, a small pueblito in Guanajuato, Mexico. Very humble families. Well, I know both of my parents had to leave their education at a really young age to support and really help with all the different needs for the family. So I know my mom, she made it to sixth grade before she stopped her education and started working and supporting her family. And my dad made it to second grade before he started working. And we have some agriculture, like a little bit of land in Mexico. So I think he started working on those. But my parents, I mean, just due to different opportunities, they decided to migrate to the United States. They ended up residing in Boise, Idaho, where they had my brothers and I, and then moved back to Mexico to continue working, being with family. And eventually, before we got into school, given that we were U.S. citizens, they decided to move back to Oklahoma, to the United States. And rather than going up to Idaho, they ended up going to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, because we had some family here. So I grew up in South Oklahoma City, South Side OKC. Uh, that's a part of Oklahoma City that has one of the largest populations of Latinos, of migrants. It also has one of the largest populations of families below the poverty line. And I think just growing up, you see that. I didn't really question it too much because that's all I knew. Um, I like to say that I was privileged to live in that part of town because because I grew up with people that looked like me, they spoke like me. We shared for in many ways, being low income and growing up in a household that, we work and we do what we can to provide for our family. But I don't know. I think in high school I started getting more involved and I started stepping out of my community and really seeing like, man, like other parts of Oklahoma City are really nice. Other schools have a lot of resources. So I just started questioning a lot and really trying to figure out like, man, like why is it that, my school doesn't have AP classes? Why it doesn't have certain opportunities? And I think in asking a lot of those questions, a lot of it went back to s- decisions people make and not when we're not always in those rooms. But I didn't really think too much of that. I did a lot of community service because, you grow up in a part of town that is primarily composed of low-income families. So I did see people in my community that were leaders that were trying to make things better. So I dedicated a lot of time supporting them. Not really with the intent to ever get into anything political, but because I saw them benefiting my family and benefiting other families. So I wanted to help them.
Appreciate that, and also I wanted to know if you have any advice, if some of family member or someone who has like give you any advice that has helped you since then.
Yeah, I mean, mentors for me have been one of the most pivotal parts of, I guess, what I would consider success. I definitely wouldn't be here if it weren't for the people I've surrounded myself with, and that includes professional mentors, but also personal mentors, people that I think are gonna give me advice because they know who I am, but also having people that within my professional life, within my spiritual life. So leaning on those that I think have had a little bit more experience is has always been super important and contributed to my success. I ask a lot of questions. That's another piece of advice I would give anyone. Ask a lot of questions. And I wasn't always comfortable asking questions. And even still, I feel like I still get a sense of nerves and I guess I feel a bit of friction in me whenever I do ask questions. But that's one of the things that I think has helped me be very successful because whenever someone asks a question, during if you're in class, you ask a question, uh, you're willing to say like, hey, I don't know. And most of us don't know a lot of things. So I think it's humbling to be willing to ask a question. I mean, you have to be somewhat brave to be able to ask a question too, because you're putting yourself out there and showing that you're a little vulnerable, right? Like you're saying that you don't know. And I think not a lot of people are comfortable doing that, especially whenever there's a lot of people around you.
Yeah,
But I think, back whenever I was in high school and questioning, like, man, like, why is it the way it is? Like, why, like, what can we do about it? Because then you just start asking more questions, and you really start understanding, first off, okay, like, why is it that they have more resources and we don't? Who's making these decisions? Why are they making these decisions? Did they consider this? Did they consider that? And I think at first it was more of like borderline complaining, I guess. I was like, man, like, why is, why is the world the way it is? But then a teacher, which I would consider a mentor, was like, well, I mean, keep asking questions, but then be willing to do something about it. I mean, now that you know, you have to do something with that knowledge. If not, it just, I mean, I mean, yeah, you can keep that knowledge and just keep the knowledge, but what's the point of knowing something if you're not willing to do something or try to do something to make it better? So then I was like, okay, like, so what can I do to make things better, right? Get involved, help people that are doing the good work, learn. Focus on my education too, because obviously, I mean, I want to pull my family out of poverty, so that's a big thing. Um, so those would be two big pieces of advice: finding mentors and asking a lot of questions. Um, and I guess the final piece of advice would just be to just know yourself. I've done a lot of work just spending time understanding who I am, my history, my family's history, my background, why I behave the way I do, because oftentimes you can tie a habit or behavior to just maybe something in your upbringing. I try to read books to help me understand parts of my life, just because, I don't know which philosopher said it, but know thyself. Very simple, but I think it's very, very important because I know my habits and I know, like, I'm not the most organized person, or I tend to run late. So the more I know and I'm aware about these things, the more I can be like, okay, I know that I'm not the most organized person. So how can I either change a habit or lean on someone that can help me figure that part out? Uh, Same thing when it comes to, okay, I don't know much about, like, I'm not a great writer, but I know people that can help me. At least, I can type something up and I'm like, okay, can you look at this and give me feedback? So I think that helps out a lot.
well, I really like the advice. Also, would like to ask what early experience helped you shape your interest in leadership or law?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, like I said, growing up, the plan was never to run for office or get into anything political. But I saw a need in my community. And I guess it was one of those cases, it sounds a little cliche, I guess, but uh, I was called to serve. I was called to serve by the people that I had done work with, not really with the intent to get involved and run for office and do political stuff, but you end up learning that everything's political. Um, but because I cared and I saw that other people cared and they were willing to spend, time, money, energy,
Yeah.
so much to help complete strangers out. And I was like, wow, that's the kind of person I want to be too. So obviously, I do believe that we're products of the people we surround ourselves with as well as our lived experiences. So I started surrounding myself with leaders that I thought were doing good work in the community. And those were the same people that eventually uh, reached out to me and encouraged me to run for office.
So I really see that. You have very passionate for helping the community, but it also brings challenges when helping the community. What has been the most challenging decision or moment in your career, and what did it teach you about leadership and law and political service?
Yeah, that's a good question. Man, there's a lot of a lot of challenging decisions I know I have to make. Uh, and I will say, I think one of the most challenging one, I feel more comfortable about it, but I think so. So whenever I decided to run, to kind of throw myself into the deep end of the pool with not knowing how to swim, and I also like to tell people that and then there's piranhas and sharks, right? I got my undergrad in mechanical engineering, so I knew I would have been successful in that. 'Cause I did a lot of research. I was involved in many organizations. Like in college, I wasn't involved. People were like, "Oh, so were you involved in like student government and student Congress and any of that?" I was like, "No, I did research and I collected air particles. I did. I mean, I did do. I was a scholar of like the president's leadership class, just because I was involved in high school, and but I did a lot of things that connected me to my culture. So I was a part of my Hispanic Student Association. I was a part of SHEP, which is the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, building more community in the areas I was doing work, in the areas I cared about. But I always was intentional about going back to my community, even throughout college, and trying to help that next person. So kids that, might have a similar story, connecting them with scholarships and mentors and resources. But I guess one of the biggest, and I haven't answered your question, but one of the biggest things that is a continual challenge, because service, I mean, you sacrifice a lot. You can sacrifice a lot. And I think being still the youngest member of Oklahoma State Legislature, one of the youngest in the nation, I guess, not necessarily being as private of a figure. I mean, I'm a public figure, I guess, public servant. So you do give up a bit of your privacy. I mean, there's a continuous, scrutinization of just no matter what you do or decide, half the people are gonna love you, half the people are gonna hate you, and that's just a part of the job. But I know it's tough sometimes, say, because after I completed my first 2 years, I mean, every 2 years you have to make the decision. Okay, am I gonna run again? And whenever I first started to run, it was tough to even make that decision to begin with because I'm weighing, I'm getting I already have a job lined up that's going to pay me very well. And, I was negotiating with them to give me, additional moving stipends and sign-on bonuses. And I mean, my first paycheck would have been as much as I make in a year now. So it's like, going into having a very humble beginning, low income background, knowing I could get a job in engineering that could help me, I mean, sustain myself, but also help my family out and buying our first house or doing something like that. And something I studied for, I mean, I did engineering for 5 years and put a lot of time, energy, and effort into a job, into a major that's fairly rigorous. To then kind of give all that up and be willing to put myself into something I never even thought about, imagined I'd do. It wasn't an easy choice. Like I said, it took me 2 months to figure out what to do. And I talked to a lot of mentors that would tell me yes, a lot of mentors that would tell me no, like stick with engineering. And a lot of people that I thought would just give me good advice that before anything else, they cared about me as Arturo, not like, oh yeah, this guy should be in office, or this guy shouldn't be in office. Like, okay, like, they just helped me think about, okay, like what does this mean for me? Before, being an engineer, being a potential elected official. So running for office, I think initially was one of the toughest things for me to decide to do, but I think one of the most rewarding. And I think every 2 years, because I've last year, I mean, I decided to do it again, and it's one of those things where like I've seen it for 2 years, I kind of know how it's starting to work. At any point, I know I could probably resign tomorrow, have a job lined up that could pay me 2 to 3 times what I'm making now, and be in a job that's stress-free in a way. But with being an elected official, representing the district like the one I do in our current political landscape, it's incredibly it's I mean, I think it's one of the toughest jobs out there. It's a thankless job. It can be a thankless job, but the impact that you can make is huge. So I know it took a little bit to be like, okay, am I going to run for office a third time? And I'm doing it again. So we'll see.
Well, I really appreciate you like sharing this because not like a lot of people know about like so looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest challenges for the future leaders in law? And what advice would you give to young people preparing to take on those challenges?
The future, I guess, to the future leaders in law, I guess a big piece of advice or something I would leave with anyone interested in law, whether it be running for office, writing the laws or interpreting them and using them to defend someone or something, being more attorneys. But law impacts, I think, every aspect of our life. Whether we want it to or not, it's one of the same things that, I tell people, just because you don't do politics, politics will always do you. Um, but law is incredibly important because, I mean, it deals with the rights that we have or don't have, the resources that we have or don't have. So I think if anyone's thinking about pursuing something within law, I mean, do them. It's not always going to be easy, but the amount of impact you can make is huge. I mean, it can make such a big impact. And another thing, I mean, I have a very different background compared to most of the people I do work with. And I think that has been a huge advantage to me, because there's not a lot of engineers that get into politics. And that major I got alone, I think puts me above a lot of people because at the end of the day, I'm still doing the same work a lot of others are doing, even though they might have pursued a poli-sci degree or something different. But I mean, I think it's helped me really see the world in a different way. And I think people, especially employers, governments, we need more of that. We need people that think a little bit differently. I think as an engineer, I can really, we're trained to solve problems. We're trained to think logically about different things, and to really just be able to work with what we have, work with constraints. And I continue to use that every single day. So I think those were you don't have to have any one background to pursue something in law. We need everyone. We need people that, I mean, if anything, I would encourage people to pursue something that they're more interested in or passionate in learning about because there's something within law that deals with that, right? Like
Yes.
right now, I mean, I love engineering, I love building things, I love dealing with physics, and I use that to write legislation about energy, which impacts everyone, right? Everyone pays an energy bill. But I have a unique understanding of how all of that works because I studied it in my undergrad and I continue to analyze and understand those systems. Um, when it comes to just specific standards that, building codes and transportation, roads, even things like, understanding how research informs healthcare, or even things like education. Uh, because I did research, I've already built skills to know how to navigate and understand more like research language and knowing how to use good use of my resources. So I'd say those things, it's good to be a little unconventional when it comes to what you pursue and what you do, because you do want to stand out. And I think doing that will help you stand out.
Well, I really like how you said like you build your skills because it's important for like any career to build your skills step by step. And
Yeah.
yes, we can connect to a lot basically to every little thing in our lives. Yeah.
Yeah. And continue to ask a bunch of questions because I have students in their undergrad, in law school that are like, hey, I'm interested in this or I'm interested in that, or are there internships opportunities available? And sometimes there isn't, but usually I'm like, well, I know this person's interested because they've asked me, like that they've shown me they're interested. So, I try to connect them with opportunities and resources. Can't always do that, obviously, because sometimes it takes, building a relationship, knowing who that person is. But it's a lot easier to do that than people think. It's a lot easier
Mm.
to reach someone that could have more connections or could have like help open that door and just show like, I mean, showing up to their events or to the things that they do and showing them that you're interested, that you care. I think that goes a long way because we can't do everything alone. So I think I mean, that unknowingly, because I did a lot of that growing up, that's what helped me end up doing what I'm doing now. And at some point, I know I'm considering law school, which is, like I said, super unconventional track. Went from being an undergrad in mechanical engineering to now being a state legislator to potentially pursuing a law degree. But because, I'm both mechanical engineer and have served as a state legislator, I think that can really help put me well above a lot of other students that might be considering, applying to law school. Assuming I do good in my LSAT, I think that'll be a big thing. I actually need to just study for that. This next year, I plan on studying. And
Okay.
yeah, so I mean, I'll be starting law school like as a 27, 28-year old potentially, which is okay, And I might not even practice law. I might, I think, because I talked to like well over 20 lawyers before I decided to more pursue a law degree. Because I'm like, I don't even know if I want to practice being an attorney, but I think it's cool having a law degree because it opens doors and it teaches you a certain skill set that I think can be effective if I wanted to run for office again after I pursued a law degree. Yeah. One of my closest colleagues, he's an immigration lawyer. And today, actually, I was at his office because he's done this for like 30 years. He's been a lawyer for 30
Um,
years, longer than I've been alive.
oh,
But I guess that's another thing too. Like, it is dynamic. It's always changing because, legislators are always writing and introducing new laws. Uh, and then we interpret laws in different ways. Gosh,
yes.
like, because he's having to deal with, I guess, because of the Trump administration, they changed if a migrant can qualify for a bond. So, like, if they can be bonded out, and they made it incredibly hard for people to be able to bond out. So,
Um,
while they're going through their immigration proceedings, rather than being detained and fighting for their case, they can bond out and, continue working, raising money, taking care of their families while they're still going through the legal process of their case. But now, like, and before, like 95% of people could have qualified for these bonds, but now they don't. Now, like 1 or 2% qualify for the bonds. So today, I was in his office doing some work for like legislative things because he's also a senator, and he was in a bond hearing to try to fight for one of his clients to bond him out. And it's tough because it's good people, He was telling me the story of one of them. Like he's like, yeah, someone that, he's never gotten in trouble with the law, has a family. Our kids go to school together at a Catholic school. But one morning, whenever he's driving to work, because he's a roofer, like 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning, he gets detained by ICE, literally going to work. Um, and now he has to fight for a bond. Um, and there's a chance that it's probably not gonna
um,
be received. Yeah, so there's a lot. I mean, right now with immigration, it's very dynamic. It's
yes.
very, very dynamic. It's changing a lot. It's not
And
easy.
yeah, and a lot of people are like fear to even speak to the representatives or even
Yeah.
question some things. How is it impacting right now your career? Like people are fearing to speak up.
It's tough because you want people to reach out whenever they have needs, whenever they need
Yes.
something. Like, hey, like if you need services, you need resources, like we want to connect you. But people are less willing to do that because like, oh, like if I reach out, am I putting myself on the line? And
Yes,
I try to really establish a lot of trust with my community because I represent the most Latino district in the state of Oklahoma. The most, the district, one of, I mean, I'm the son of immigrant parents, so I feel that. Yeah, and it's tough, but showing up and showing people that you care, I think is important. And trying to find ways to connect with them in the ways that they receive that information. So there's a lot that we're working on. It's not easy, but
it's
we've hosted a lot of legal clinics, so we work with law students, with people that want to get into law, and we've hosted different legal clinics where we help prepare families. Uh, if if something were to happen, then we try to be like, okay, like if you want to have a family preparedness plan, plan A and plan B in case for
yes.
something were to happen. Considering okay, like if the dad's a breadwinner and his dad gets detained, like what plan do you have in case that happens, right? Like, is there a bit of savings? Because I've had conversations with kids that are in high school that like, man, like my dad got detained. He was the one that making all the money. Now my mom's working, but she's also undocumented, so she's at risk. And I still got a little sister and a little brother to take care of. Like, so this kid's having to consider like, do I drop out of school, work full time, and help provide for my family? Because at the end of the day, they still got to have a roof over their heads, still got to feed themselves and all that. So it's like, man, like it's tough. And they didn't have a plan. So trying to help people prepare in case something were to happen, I think is one of the most important things right now. Because that also gives you peace of mind. Whenever someone just doesn't know, like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'll do whenever something happens. Then it's anxiety, it's stressful, and people just don't know what they need to do sometimes. So last year we did a few different legal clinics, just created these like packets which were family preparedness plans. These are your rights. This is what you need to think about if something were to happen. Here's some like things you can fill out to make sure, okay, this is emergency context. I have these documents all in one place. We also help them fill out powers of attorney. So if, there's someone that's a non-citizen that owns property, things like that, then they can assign someone that is a citizen to be able to make decisions on their behalf when it comes to those things. And then Oklahoma, most of the states don't have something like this, but Senator Brooks, which is an immigration lawyer, same guy I was talking about earlier, he introduced a bill a few years ago that created a standby guardianship because if you're a parent you're undocumented, but you have kids that are citizens, which is, I mean, fairly common, then what if you get detained while your kids are at school? Like, who's the emergency contact? So standby guardianship just enables someone to gain guardianship
Mhm.
if a triggering event happens, and that includes detention. Yeah. So that, and people ask questions, and like I said, the goal is to give them a bit of peace of mind and help them prepare. So that's one of the big things we've done to prepare families.
I appreciate your time here, and it's almost getting time to end. So, what's one advice you give to, like if a student or a college student wants to pursue something like career-wise in law and political service? If
Hmm.
they're
Get
doubting,
involved.
yeah,
Yeah,
if
I'd say the biggest thing. I'm sorry, I'll let you finish your question.
if they having like some, what if I don't fit in, or what if I don't have this skill that I need? Like doubting themselves, what
Yeah,
advice would you
just
give
gotta be
them?
willing. Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing, you just gotta show up. You just gotta show up. Even if you don't ask a question or don't make a contact, just showing up, I think people see that. And eventually you gain the comfort to be like, okay, this time my goal is to ask one question, to get one business card, and just following up to like, even if you don't say anything, you don't do anything during that meeting, right? Because there's town hall meetings, there's organizations, they host, like, there's always stuff out there. Like, whatever you care about, whatever you want to get involved in, there's a group out there doing that work already. And most groups need more people. They need volunteers, they need people to support. They just need a reminder that the work that they do matters to someone. And by showing up, you're showing them like, hey, like this matters to me, or I want to get more involved with this.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the big things, just showing up. Because I showed up and I literally just volunteered. They told me everything I needed to do, and I just did it. And then I was like, you know what else can I do? That I think really helped me get out of my comfort zone, learn skills, get more. And it takes a little bit for sure, but it just takes showing up again and again and again. Because now I organize events and I help mentor people. And sometimes I know there's kids out there, people out there that they're shy, they're not used to these things, but they keep showing up. And I'm like, man, like this guy keeps showing up. And maybe at first they're like, man, like this guy didn't do a whole lot, but it's okay because he keeps showing up and he's
Yeah.
doing a bit more every time. And I'm like, you know what? In my eyes, that's that's good. That's awesome. Uh, but just show up, I guess. That'd be the piece of
Yes.
advice for them.
And taking action, as you mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
before, also taking action if you see something that wants to be like, if you see like an arrow or something to be fixed, we have to raise our voices and take action.
Exactly. Yeah, we got to be willing to do something about it.
Yes. Well, I appreciate your time being here at the Beyond Law podcast. And another quick question I have is one, if the listeners remember one thing from this episode, what should it be?
Man, if they could remember one thing, what would it be? Hmm. You know, sometimes I guess the right thing to do isn't always the easy thing to do.